Hello, recruits! I'm Chris with the Northern California Ghostbusters. I'm the founder and experimental equipment technician, and today I'm going to be walking you through attaching an Alice frame to your HasLab Proton pack. Here we have all of the hardware that you're going to need for attaching your frame to your HasLab Proton pack. First of all, we have the brackets, screws, and spacers that are going to be included in your HasLab box. You'll be able to find them in a little white paper bag, and it should be tucked in with the rest of your equipment. You'll also need a Phillips head or one long flat head screwdriver. You have the option of adding a foam roll with some black tape to help protect your neck and the back of your head. That's helpful, but not necessary. Now, let's get started. Here we have the HasLab Proton pack out of the box. It will not have its hose attached when you pull it out. We're going to leave it unattached for now while we work. First, we're going to go ahead and flip the whole thing over so we can get to what is called the motherboard. So now that we have access to the motherboard, we're going to take our frame. In this case, we're using a Rothco brand LC1 replica Alice frame. However, any replica LC1 Alice frame will work, as well as any LC2 frame, from what I understand. There's also the Fox Outdoors frame, and then there's just plain old vintage frames. If you can get your hands on any of them, they will work. However, if you're going for super screen accuracy, this is the Rothco frame, which is what was used in Afterlife for their Hero Proton pack. So that's what we're going to use today. First of all, you'll notice at the very bottom of the frame are these two slots that are already cut in there for us. Those two slots are going to be lined up with these two bottom mounting holes. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the two spacer pieces that have been provided, as well as the two long screws that have been provided. Want to make sure that we have the straps facing away from the Proton pack towards you. And we're going to basically just pull the strapping aside where we can see through the slots on the bottom here that, yep, we're pretty well lined up with those two holes. But we need the spacers underneath, and then we need to run the screws all the way through. The easiest way to do that is to actually hold the frame apart, get that screw caught on that slot there real quick, and then we're going to run the spacer through the other side. And then once we kind of have that in hand, we can just get it started by a finger, and we're going to leave that loose so we can move things around pretty easily. And we're going to repeat the same process here on the other side. And voila, there's our very bottom set of attachments. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and intentionally leave these a little bit loose for now. Actually going to loosen that second one up a little bit. And then that's going to give us some wiggle room to move this around where we need it to be while we attach the rest of the brackets. Also, specifically, you'll notice that the mounting holes that I'm looking for are these that have the little screw inserts on the inside. That's where you're actually going to be able to thread things in. So there is an order and design to the brackets. You'll notice that we have a set of 3 thin brackets that are 3 different heights. There's a short one, a medium one, and a tall one. So the tall one is actually going to be our lowest most bracket, where this center bar sits at its highest. Our medium height bar is going to be our center one, and then our shorty is going to go all the way at the top, where it's got the lowest clearance. Now, while the screws are pretty much universal from here on out, the brackets are not, so you're going to want to pay attention to which brackets you're putting where. To make my life easy, I'm just going to go ahead and align and get that down on the very top, and that should hopefully help force everything else get into alignment as well. Always handy to leave things a little bit loose until you have both screws and everything in, and then go through and tighten everything at once. That's a nice little assembly trick that I've picked up over the years. You can see now with that top bracket and those bottom brackets in place, now all of a sudden my middle bracket is just sitting perfectly where it wants to be. going to do the same thing here that we did at the top. Just get both screws into their mounts first. And then I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. There's that. And then our bottom bracket. And once again, same thing. Leaving things loose on the one side until I get both screws in there. And tighten them on down. See? There we go. Oh. See if I can get it to catch first. How about that? And you don't have to be too careful with all of these mounting screws. Thankfully, they've given us these metal inserts behind the plastic, so you don't have to worry too much about stripping your threads when you go to tighten these screws down. That said, if you start to hear creaking plastic, you might be breaking plastic under there, so don't get too crazy. These two brackets are a little bit wider and shorter, and they go across the center bar here. See, I'm already seeing some slight alignment issues, which means that I actually need to go back and loosen things a little bit. The thing you may notice already is I have a very slight alignment issue happening now that I have these 3 brackets in place. That's okay. That's actually, all we're going to do is we're going to go back, we're going to loosen the screws on these 3 brackets so that there's a little bit more wiggle room. We're going to slightly adjust the frame a little bit so that it gives us the correct clearance here. And then we're going to go back through and tighten everything back down once everything's on. Now that I've gone back and I've just loosened up every single screw that I've just put down, you'll be able to see I've got a little bit of wiggle room here. That's exactly what I want. We're going to kind of take advantage of that wiggle room. And look at that. We're able to align our holes just about perfectly now. So, let's see if I can get that in there. We'll get that started. And then once again, I'm gonna leave things loose until I have both brackets on and screws in both bracket sides and kind of make sure everything is able to get on there. And then I'm gonna tighten everything down. Our last bracket, and it's looking pretty good, like it's gonna just pop right in there. I might be a little off, no. Last screw. There we go. All right. Now that we have everything on there loosely, still kind of loose, we're going to go through and tighten everything down real good. As I mentioned before, the threaded nuts behind the plastic are metal, so you don't have to worry about stripping those. However, there is still plastic sandwiched in there, so be careful about tightening it too hard. If you start to hear anything crack, definitely back off. It just needs to be hand tightened. It doesn't need to be machine tightened or anything fancy. And all of this can just be done with hand tools. And that's how we attach the Alice frame to the HasLab pack. Now the only thing that's missing here is going to be that neck roll. And if you want to see how to do that, I've got some right here. What we have here is just a shortcut of pipe insulation foam. You generally see it by the box. Sometimes you can find it by a single tube. You're going to find it in 5-foot increments. I believe this is the 1 1/8 inch diameter size, if I recall correctly. It should be just about the right size for putting on the very top bar of your Alice frame to help protect the back of your neck and head. We've taken the Alice frame and separated it from the HasLab pack for the time being. And this stuff has a handy split all the way down one side, so all we're going to do is get a good idea of exactly how much we need here, and then trim the excess off. All right.
With scissors.
With scissors. And then I've already gone through and prepared several pieces of tape here. And this is, my personal favorite is the Gorilla brand tape, but really any black tape will do.
Any black duct tape or electrical tape?
Any black duct tape will do. The screen-used props had what's called gaffer's tape, which is very similar, but it's got a much softer cloth so you can tear it by hand. So the trick that I've kind of figured out, this is the side that's actually going to be facing out towards the wearer. And what I like to do is I will take it, I go under and I get the very tip started there so I can kind of wrap it over. And then we're just gonna spiral in towards the center as much as possible. Don't worry if it gets a little lumpy and weird. We're just kinda, we're gonna be working with multiple strips here. We can smooth things out once it's kinda done. So the big bonus of having this is when you have the whole proton pack on, this top bar is what is gonna be sitting directly on the top of your neck and shoulders, which means that any weight that the frame doesn't distribute down to your hips from the kidney pads is going to be sitting directly up here on your shoulders. Now that's not too big of a deal if you're wearing it for a very short period of time, but if you're out and about on a long troop, say for up to 8 hours, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of how much pain you're going to be feeling. And once again, we're doing the same thing as the other side, just wrapping right around, spiraling towards the center. So the real trick is leaving enough of a gap in that split for the center bar and for the straps to kind of exist and pass through.
Work your way around the straps.
Exactly. You want
to
work your way around the straps and the center bar basically. And you can kind of manhandle things as you go to make it work. You definitely need more than 4 long strips like you see me using right here. I am just kind of getting the majority of this covered and down, and then I'm going to go over with some smaller pieces and fill in the space so it's just all completely covered. The bottom and pulling around the top just to kind of help pull that split together. No, I screwed up. All right, we're not going to go that far with that piece. We're going to just wrap it right there. There we go. And obviously I'm getting some ugly pieces here, but that's okay because
the more secondhand it looks, the better.
Yeah, the more handmade it looks, the better. That just kind of fits the aesthetic that is Ghostbusters. There's that, and I actually have a little excess tape here finally. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim that down. So it fits right onto the foam and we're not dragging onto the frame at all, just to make sure nothing's getting in the way. And then that gives us a little extra strip here, so let's go ahead and cover up some of that space that I mentioned. And again, another big space here. You can kind of start to see the actual neck foam shape kind of get covered up and start to take shape here. Now it's important to note that you will have to take the frame off of the HasLab Proton pack to be able to put this neck foam on. And then when you go to put it back on, you're going to notice that it's going to make things at the top sit kind of proud from the back of the Proton pack. So you're going to have to kind of squish this foam down together just to get those top sets of brackets into place. So you can see just how much of a gap adding the neck roll adds to the top of the frame. There's quite a bit more distance added between the bracket and the back of the pack now. That said, all the foam is the only thing that's stopping us, and literally all we're just gonna do is press down, a little bit of pressure, get that thread started. Ta-da! So I'm starting at the top because I have the foam back on, because I know that this foam is gonna be pushing everything up away. I want to make sure that I get that secured as much as possible before I advance and get to the other brackets and start messing around here. And there we go. Alice frame attached directly to your HasLab pack with a neck foam roll right on there to help protect your delicate, delicate flesh. So if you're looking for the exact same Alice frame that we used, that is the Rothko framed, we'll have a link below in the description. You'll be able to find those there, as well as all of our social media links and contact info. Like, comment, subscribe, interact with the video, give us any kind of shout out, please. We love you, internet. Otherwise, this has been Chris with the Northern California Ghostbusters, signing off, recruits.